Hey, it's Dr. Ray Heinisch, author of the book Strong Bones Forever and creator of this channel. Before I get into the video for today, I would love to hear your bisphosphonate story. If you've been prescribed to bisphosphonate like Fosamax, Actonel, Boniva, or you know somebody who has been, tell me your or their story in the comments below this video. That's all for now. Let's get into today's video. You've just left the doctor's office. The words osteopenia or osteoporosis are still echoing in your ears. And almost in the same breath, you were handed a prescription, likely for a bisphosphonate drug. Am I right? It's the standard playbook. You're told it will make your bones denser and protect you from fractures. And a part of you feels a flicker of relief. Finally, a solution. But then a nagging question starts to creep in, doesn't it? You've heard whispers, maybe read a few things online, and you start to wonder, if this drug makes my bones denser according to a scan, does that automatically mean that they're going to be stronger as well? Could this medication I'm supposed to take for years actually over time make my bones more brittle, more prone to the very fractures I'm terrified of? It's a scary thought, and one that many women I talk to grapple with every single day. Well, what if I told you that this very question, this deep-seated concern about bone quality versus just bone quantity, is now being investigated at a microscopic level by scientists? Groundbreaking research is starting to pull back the curtain, revealing what really happens to the intricate architecture and true strength of your bones after long-term bisphosphonate therapy. Today, we're not just scratching the surface. We are diving deep into a pivotal study that directly challenges the density is everything mindset. We'll unpack what these scientists found when they looked beyond the surface, examining the hidden world of microcracks and the actual mechanical resilience of bone. By the end of this video, you'll understand the crucial difference between dense bones and truly strong bones, and you'll be armed with the knowledge that could fundamentally change how you approach your bone health journey. Stick with me because what we're about to uncover is too important to ignore. So let's talk about these bisphosphonate medications. You've probably heard names like Alendronate, Fosamax, Risedronate, Actonel, or Alendronate, which is Boniva. They are by far the most commonly prescribed drugs for osteoporosis. And on the surface, the way they're supposed to work sounds pretty straightforward. Our bones are in a constant state of renewal, a bit like a never-ending construction project. We have cells called osteoclasts that act like the demolition crew, breaking down old or damaged bone. And then we have osteoblasts, the construction crew that build new bone. In osteoporosis, that demolition crew, the osteoclast, can become a bit overactive, leading to more bone being broken down than is being rebuilt. This is what leads to bone loss. Bisphosphonates step in by essentially telling these osteoclast cells, the demolition crew, to take a long break. They dramatically slow down their activity. The idea is that if you reduce the amount of bone being broken down, you'll kind of tip the balance back towards preserving or even increasing bone mass. And indeed, when women take these drugs, their DEXA scans often show an increase in bone mineral density. That's a number your doctor is looking at. The promise is that this increased density will translate into fewer fractures. But here's where a really important question starts to surface, a question that this new research is helping us to answer. Is denser always stronger? Think about it. You can have something that's very dense, like a piece of chalk, but it's also very brittle and snaps very, very easily. Then you can have something that's less dense, like a piece of bamboo, which is incredibly strong and flexible. So while these drugs are good at making bones appear denser on a scan, what's happening to the actual toughness, the resilience, and the quality of the bone material itself? That's what we need to know. How exactly did scientists try to answer this crucial question in a real-world setting? That's what we're digging into next. So with that big question hanging in the air, is denser bone necessarily stronger bone? Let's turn to this fascinating piece of research. The study we're looking at, published in the journal Scientific Reports by a group of researchers led by Xiaojiang Ma, decided to go much deeper than just a standard bone density scan. They wanted to see what was really going on at the microscopic level within the bones of people who had been on bisphosphonate therapy. To do this, they looked at bone samples taken from the femoral heads. That's the top part of your thigh bone that fits into your hip socket. They did this in 3 different groups of people. First, they had patients who had unfortunately suffered a hip fracture and had been taking bisphosphonate medications for at least 1 year. Now, that at least 1 year is an important detail that we're going to come back to because the effects of these drugs can change the longer that you're on them. Now, the second group also had hip fractures, but these individuals had not taken bisphosphonate drugs. And the third group was a control group of healthy aging individuals who hadn't had fractures. This setup allowed the researchers to make some really important comparisons. Now, how did they look inside these bones? They didn't just use a regular X-ray. They used an incredibly advanced technology called synchrotron X-ray microcomputed tomography, or micro-CT for short. Imagine a super-powered 3D X-ray that can see with such incredible detail that it can map out the tiniest structures and even defects within the bone. Things completely invisible to the naked eye or even a standard medical scan. It's like having a high-definition microscope that can see in 3 dimensions. And what were they looking for with this powerful microscope? They weren't just measuring overall density, they were investigating the true quality of the bone by looking for specific things. First, perforations. These are essentially tiny holes or gaps that can weaken the bone's internal scaffolding. Second, and this is really key, microcracks. These are microscopic cracks that can develop within the bone material itself, a bit like hairline cracks in a teacup. These are signs of damage and fatigue. And finally, they didn't just look, they also tested the bone. They performed mechanical tests to measure its true strength and resilience, how much force it could take before it bent or even broke. This is where the rubber meets the road, understanding not just what the bone looks like, but how it actually performs under stress. With such a detailed investigation, what exactly did these powerful tools reveal about the state of these bones? All right, so the scientists had their bone samples, their superpowered micro-CT scanner, and they knew what they were looking for. What did they find? Well, the results were, to put it mildly, quite eye-opening, and they paint a much more complex picture than just denser bones are better bones. First, let's talk about those perforations, the tiny holes in the bone structure. The study found that the bone from patients who had been tested with bisphosphonates actually had fewer perforations compared to the fracture patients who hadn't taken the drug. Now, on the surface, that sounds like good news, right? Fewer holes might suggest a more solid, denser structure. And this is consistent with what bisphosphonates are designed to do: slow down the breakdown of bone that can lead to these gaps. But hold on, because this is where the story takes a sharp turn. When the researchers looked for those microcracks, the tiny internal signs of damage, the picture changed dramatically. The bone from the bisphosphonate treated group showed significantly more numerous microcracks. And not only were there more of them, but these microcracks were also larger in size compared to both the untreated fracture group and the healthy control group. Think about that for a moment. The very treatment aimed at strengthening bone was associated with a higher accumulation of this internal damage. This is a direct hit to the idea of bone quality. More and bigger microcracks are not what you want to see if you're aiming for resilient, fracture-proof bones. And then came the ultimate test, the mechanical strength test. How did the bone actually hold up when put under stress? This is where the findings become even more concerning. The bone from the bisphosphonate-treated patients demonstrated reduced tensile strength and a lower Young's modulus. Now, those are technical terms, but what they mean in plain English is that the bone was less able to withstand stretching forces before breaking, and it was more brittle, less flexible, and less resilient. It couldn't absorb as much energy before it failed. So let's piece this together. While the bisphosphonate treated bone had fewer of those larger perforations, it was riddled with more and bigger microcracks, and when push came to shove, it was mechanically weaker and more brittle. This is a critical finding. It strongly suggests that just looking at bone density, which might be improved by fewer perforations, doesn't tell the whole story about how strong or fracture resistant that bone truly is. In this study, the markers of bone quality and true strength were actually compromised in the long-term bisphosphonate group. This leads to a huge question, doesn't it? Why would a medication designed to help bones end up potentially making them more prone to internal damage and brittleness over time? What's happening at a deeper biological level that could explain these paradoxical findings? Well, that's exactly what we're going to explore next. So we're faced with this puzzle. Bisphosphonate drugs can reduce perforations, which might make bones look denser on a scan, but the study shows that they can also lead to more microcracks and ultimately weaker, more brittle bones. How can this be? The answer lies in understanding how our bones naturally stay strong and healthy, and what happens when that process is significantly altered for long periods of time. Our bones, as we touched on earlier, are incredibly dynamic living tissues. They are constantly undergoing a process called remodeling. Now, you can think of it as a highly intelligent, ongoing maintenance program. Specialized cells, the osteoclasts, seek out and remove tiny areas of old or damaged bone, including those microscopic cracks that form from everyday wear and tear. Then another set of cells, the osteoblasts, come in and lay down new, fresh, strong bone in its place. This constant cycle of removal and replacement is absolutely essential for repairing microdamage, keeping our bones youthful, and maintaining their quality and resilience. It's how your bones heal themselves. Now, bisphosphonates, as we know, are very powerful at slowing down those osteoclasts, the cells that remove bone. And initially, this can be beneficial, especially if bone loss is rapid. It helps to preserve the bone mass. But here's the catch, and it's a big one when we talk about long-term use. If you suppress that bone removal process too much for too long, you also cripple the bone's natural ability to repair itself. Imagine those microcracks forming. They're a normal consequence of living. In a healthy remodeling cycle, they'd be detected and repaired. But if the osteoclasts are asleep on the job due to long-term bisphosphonate use, those microcracks don't get fixed. Instead, they can accumulate, more and more of them. And the bone tissue itself doesn't get refreshed as often, so it effectively becomes older. Think of it like an M&M, a soft inner core with a hard candy shell. This is what scientists often refer to as the risk of oversuppression of bone turnover. The longer treatment continues, the more pronounced this effect can become. That at least 1 year of treatment in the study group is just a starting point. For women who are on these drugs for 5, 7, or even 10 years, the potential for this accumulation of unrepaired damage and aging of the bone tissue becomes a much greater concern. The bone can become, in a sense, frozen. Its normal healthy turnover stalled. And while it might be dense, it can also become increasingly brittle, like an old piece of wood that looks solid but snaps easily under pressure. It's like that road crew analogy again. If you only ever fill the obvious potholes, i.e. reduce the perforations, but you never allow the crew to dig up and repave the old cracking asphalt, i.e. repair the microcracks and renew the bone matrix, eventually that entire road surface becomes structurally compromised and fragile, no matter how smooth it looks on top. This frozen but brittle state is the potential downside of interfering too much for too long with our bone's brilliant natural maintenance system. One final piece of confirming evidence was published in the British Medical Journal in 2013, where the researchers followed a cohort of 12,054 individuals and reported that patients who were on bisphosphonates for longer than 3 years were at significantly increased risk of hip fracture compared to the control group. In addition, they noted that the longer the patients were on bisphosphonates, the higher their fracture risk. The researchers noted in this scientific report study that, quote, the occurrence of hip fractures in bisphosphonate treated patients may not be due to the inefficacy of the drug, but rather a consequence of its effectiveness. What that says is our model for treating osteoporosis is flawed because these drugs are actually working exactly as intended and are ultimately making the bones worse because of it. That's an eyebrow-raising statement. So understanding this potential for accumulated microdamage and increased brittleness with long-term bisphosphonate use is one thing, but what does this actually mean for you sitting there, perhaps with an osteoporosis diagnosis or a bisphosphonate prescription in hand? How can this knowledge empower you to make different choices or ask different questions when it comes to your bone health? That's precisely what we're going to tackle next. So we've journeyed through the science, and it's clear that the story of bone health is far more nuanced than just achieving a certain number on a DEXA scan. This research from Ma and his colleagues showing increased microcracks and reduced mechanical strength in bisphosphonate-treated bones powerfully validates that intuitive feeling many of you might have, that there has to be more to strong bones than just density. And you're absolutely right. The biggest takeaway here is that bone mineral density is not the sole predictor of your fracture risk. Let me say that again. Just because your bone density number goes up doesn't automatically mean your bones are optimally protected against breaking. What this study and a growing body of research is telling us is that bone quality, its microarchitecture, the intricate internal scaffolding, and the material properties of the bone itself are critically important. There are the factors that determine how resilient your bones are, how well they can absorb shock, and how resistant they are to developing those dangerous microcracks that can lead to a full fracture. This understanding is incredibly empowering because it changes the conversation you can have with your doctor. Instead of just focusing on the DEXA score, you can now ask more informed questions. For instance, doctor, given my situation, what is the optimal duration for me to be on this bisphosphonate medication? Are there diminishing returns or increased risk with very long-term use? What are your thoughts on drug holidays for bisphosphonates? Is that something we should consider to allow my bone's natural remodeling process to function? And perhaps most importantly, beyond my bone density, how can we get a better sense of my bone quality and my true fracture resilience? These are the conversations that shift the focus from just a number to the actual health and strength of your bones. And to help you feel even more confident and prepared for these vital discussions, I want to mention something I've put together for you. Understanding the difference between bone density and bone quality is truly a game changer in how you advocate for your bone health. So I've created detailed show notes that break down this specific study that we've been discussing, highlighting these key distinctions between density and quality and listing some of these important questions. You can download them completely for free. The link is right there in the description below. It's a great resource to review before your next doctor's appointment. Because armed with this knowledge, you're no longer just a passive recipient of a diagnosis and a prescription. You become an active partner in your bone health. But beyond just understanding the potential pitfalls and asking better questions about medications, what proactive steps can you take to build truly unshakable bones from the ground up, focusing on that all-important bone quality? Let's explore that next. So we've seen that while medications like bisphosphonates might play a role in managing bone density, this study really underscores a crucial point. For truly strong, resilient, and fracture-proof bones, we need to look beyond just the pill. The focus on bone quality and its natural maintenance processes opens up a whole world of proactive strategies that can make a profound difference. This is where understanding the foundations of bone health becomes so empowering, because your bones are living tissues. They respond incredibly well to the right inputs. We're talking about things like targeted nutrition. It's not just about calcium. Your bones need a whole symphony of nutrients: magnesium, vitamin D3, and especially vitamin K2, which plays a critical role in directing calcium into your bones and keeping it out of your arteries. Protein is also vital for the bone matrix, the very framework of your bones. And I should note that on this channel, I have a video dedicated just to building your osteoporosis diet. Now, bone-specific exercises are another factor. Weight-bearing exercise and resistance training are essential. They create gentle stresses on your bones that signal them to become stronger and denser, improving their microarchitecture. but it needs to be done the right way. You need to have the right kinds of exercise done safely and effectively. Now, managing stress and inflammation. Chronic stress and inflammation can wreak havoc on your bones, accelerating bone loss. Strategies to manage stress and reduce inflammation are key components of a holistic bone health plan. These natural strategies work by supporting your body's innate ability to build and maintain high-quality bone tissue, bone that is not just dense, but also flexible and resilient. And speaking of understanding bone quality, I want to touch on an exciting development in technology. While DEXA scans tell us about density, there's an emerging technology called Echolight REMS, which stands for Radio Frequency Echographic Multispectrometry. Now, I know that's a mouthful, but what it does is pretty amazing. It uses ultrasound waves to give a real-time assessment of bone microarchitecture and bone quality, providing insights into bone fragility that go far beyond what a standard DEXA can show. It's non-invasive, radiation-free, and could be a game changer in helping you and your doctor get a more complete picture of your true bone health and fracture risk. Moving beyond just that density number is definitely something to keep an eye on and discuss with your healthcare provider as it becomes more widely available. And I did a video comparing the DEXA and the Echolight REMS on this channel. Understanding all of your options, from the science behind medications effects to natural bone building strategies and new assessment technologies, is absolutely crucial. And if you're ready to dive deeper into building stronger bones from the inside out, or if you just want a clear summary of the science we discussed today from that important bisphosphonate study, don't forget to download the free show notes. They break down this study's findings and are a great resource. The link, once again, is in the description. Ultimately, this journey isn't about fearing medications or rejecting conventional approaches. It's about becoming fully informed, understanding the nuances, and advocating for what's truly best for your long-term bone health. Your goal isn't just denser bones on a report. It's achieving truly strong, resilient, vibrant bones that will support you through a lifetime of activity, independence, and joy. Remember, you have an incredible capacity to influence your bone health. Armed with the right knowledge and a proactive, holistic approach, a future where you feel confident and secure in your body's strength is absolutely achievable. I hope this deep dive into the science of bisphosphonates and bone quality has been enlightening for you. If you found this information valuable, please give the video a like. It really helps more women like you find this content. And if you want to continue learning about how to build stronger bones naturally and stay updated on the latest research, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. And don't stop here. I have many other videos on bone health, diving into specific nutrients, exercises, and other natural strategies that can help you on your journey. Be sure to check those out for even more insights. Thank you so much for watching, and here's to your strong bones and vibrant future. I'm Dr. Ray Heinisch, author of the book Strong Bones Forever and creator of the Osteo Coach Center for Strong Bones. I'll see you in the next video.